Pastel paper isn't cheap, so it can be really frustrating when you aren't happy with your work. But did you know there's a great and much less expensive alternative? Regular old sandpaper. Yep, I'm talking about the kind you get at the hardware store. It's the perfect option if you're a beginner, if you want to practice making marks, or if you're just not quite sure you're ready to use the expensive stuff yet. So let me show you how it works for layering, blending, and details while I paint this delicious, juicy watermelon. Hey everyone! Today we're going to do something fun. We're painting on sandpaper. And yes, I mean regular old sandpaper that you buy at the hardware store. It comes in obviously a lot of different grits. I am using 400, but you could use a lower grit. I wouldn't go below 200. Anything under that is going to be too rough for your pastels. And it comes in different colors. So obviously I have the purple, comes in tan. I've seen it in black and red and green. So you can even get colored versions of it. And this particular one is wet and dry. So this is wet friendly. Some of them are not wet friendly. So if you want to use it with any kind of liquid medium, make sure you get the one that is wet friendly. It is not archival. It's not acid free. So if you do paint on it, your painting over time could change color or fade. So it's not going to give you the same performance and longevity as like a pastel paper. But like I said, it's a great paper to use for practicing. All right, so I have my background sketched in, and this is pretty uniformly lit, but I do want to add kind of a little more of directional light just to make it a little more interesting. So I'm going to do my background in shades of blue and teal, but keeping it a little darker in this left side. And I'm just starting out with my Rembrandts. And because I'm on a purple surface, it's definitely going to impact my green tones because this purpley violet is kind of, this purpley violet. Well, that was fun. We have the drain for my washer is leaking, and it's leaking into my studio. So you can imagine how much fun that is. It was actually dripping onto my pastel tray and ruined a couple of my sticks. So hubby's looking into that. I'm just gonna keep painting. I moved everything. We got a bucket down, so we'll get it fixed. But that's why Wally was communicating his desire to go visit his father, who is down here. So anyways, I'm just making my background just with the shades of blue, bringing in a little bit of green because our our watermelon are that pinky red color. So just want to create a little bit of a fun contrast between the watermelon. Just want to create a fun contrast between the watermelon and the background. So I just used my Rembrandts to just put this background in. Now, obviously I'm blending it. You can see how nicely the pastels blend into this paper. So even though this is a 400 grit sandpaper, it is a little different than like a 400 UArt. Just like all papers are unique. It's the same thing with, with sandpaper. It's going to be a little bit unique compared to other papers. And now just putting some browns down for our table. Of course, I go much deeper into all the techniques I use in this lesson inside my Pastel Growth Studio on Patreon. My members not only get full lessons, but also full product evaluations, step-by-step how-tos for your most pressing pastel questions, fun monthly challenges, and behind-the-scenes looks. I would love to welcome you to the family. I'm offering a 7-day free trial, and it's only $5 a month after that. I'll put the link in the description. And I'm going vertically with my table strokes because it looks like there's some wood grain or wood, the table is made of wood. So I'm going to just create a little bit of that feeling. And you can see the table angles a little as it goes back, so that helps to create some perspective for us. And blending this, I'm going to follow those same directional lines. All right, just going a little lighter on this side. And I'm not going to put like a really strong delineation between my table and my background. Kind of let them blend into each other a little bit. And now this blue that I'm using, I put this down in here because it's going to look a little more gray. Just cool down our table area. Now bringing a little of this lighter green in. It's a little warmer, but still on that lighter side. So it's important to make sure your transition from light to dark isn't right in the middle of the painting. So I'm going to try and keep my darkest area just up in here, and then just gradually bring it over to the lighter tones on the right. I'm wanting it to feel nice and cloudy, kind of a mottled background. I don't want it to have any kind of detail or lines or anything suggesting that there's anything back there. I just want it nice and soft and organic. So just blending in kind of some random movements here. I'm not trying to blend in circles or up and down, just all over the place. I want to really get some darker feeling into this corner. And I'm even bringing a little darkness in there so it feels kind of like some shadows are happening. Just using a little bit of a warmer blue here. So my layers are starting to build up, which is what I want to have happen, and that's going to make blending even easier now because I have more pastel on the paper that I can move around. You'll notice when you first start blending your first layer or two, it's a little harder to push it around because the paper's grabbing onto it. But as you get a little more pastel down on the paper, it gets nice and soft where you can start moving it. So I'm just going to add a little more green in. now as I'm blending really soft. Like I'm not even pressing hard because I want to keep this same kind of nice cloudy feeling that I have going on. All right, coming back to my table. So I'm just using a few different shades of cooler grays and browns now on top of those warm ones that I initially put down. This is just helping create a little more variety. Just blending it into my backdrop. And we'll put more details down here on the table after we get our bowl in. But just wanting to establish a really nice base for it. Now for my plate, I'm going to use a really pale blue. This is almost white. And I'm just going to kind of outline where my plate is. So my pencil lines are a little bit gone now. All right, so that's where the plate. And I'm just going to add some little flicks of white in there just to get the plate kind of situated. And I'm still using all Rembrandts here. All right, now let's get some of our watermelon in. So I'm just starting out with a very dark green. It's a warm green. This won't be our final green, but just wanting to get just a base layer in here. All right, now putting in this very bright pink. Again, these are not our final colors, just our underpainting. All right, so this is also letting me see now where my background needs to be kind of pushed in a little closer. This is a green, but on top of our pink, it is taking on a bit of almost an orange because this chartreuse and pink, it's yellow enough that it's gonna pull a little bit of an orange or a warmer chartreuse, which is okay. All right, so I'm gonna blend this in now. I'm just pushing this pink into the paper. Just trying to fill up my tooth. And the dark green. And then our plate. And I'm not really going to do much with the plate yet. I want to get my watermelons all situated before I really work on the plate and the table. So I'm kind of working from the top down. When I do still lives, I do work more from the top down instead of foreground to background. All right, so let's cool down our watermelons. Gonna add a little bit of this salmon color in here. And now I'm really looking at you know, kind of the angles and the direction that these fruits are sitting and trying to really kind of get them where they feel like they're sitting in front of each other. Let's blend that in. So now we're creating a new color by blending this pink and this orange. I'm just gonna bring a little bit of some lightness just right on this border where our pink and our green meet. Again, these are not final colors. We're just getting everything kind of prepped for our next layers that are going to be going on top. That will be our true colors. So it's starting to look now like more like watermelon. All right, So I'm really liking where we're going with this. You can still see some of the purple showing through, which I like. I'm not sure if it will stay or not. We'll see as I go. All right, so now I'm just gonna start working on the fruit. So now I'm switching away from my Rembrandt. So now I'm going to my softer pastels. And these layers I won't be blending as much. I might blend them a little bit for specific effects that I'm trying to get, but I won't be just blending them to blend all the colors together. So sandpaper, even though it is, you know, kind of a similar like grit, it does not hold quite as much as like a 400 grit pastel paper in my experience. It's very, very similar, but I don't think you get quite as many layers. So you do have to be a little more aware as you're adding your layers that you're not filling up your tooth. But it's great practice. Like I said earlier, if you're trying to practice pastels, using sandpaper is a really, really good way to practice, because it does have some of the same challenges that regular sanded paper is going to have in terms of, you know, not being able to layer indefinitely. So I'm just using combinations here of these light peachy salmony tones and these kind of light pinky salmony tones. Because on top of the base colors that we put down, they're really creating the perfect color for this watermelon. So I'm just gonna bring my background down just a little bit here. So my brain keeps trying to add another slice back in there. Maybe there is in the photo, I don't know, but I want to stop like tricking my brain. All right, so now very, 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 very lightly, I'm just softening some of these horizontal lines. Just to kind of take away the pastel marks from the edges of the pastels. But I'm not trying to blend everything together, just getting rid of that sharp edge that shows up. Okay, so we have just some little, kind of some little deviations and imperfections in our slices, which is to be expected. They're fruit. All right, same thing, just softening, and I'm really just tapping now. I'm not even dragging my finger. All right, so they're really starting to look like watermelons now. And we do have some really deep kind of cavities here where the seeds are. So this is actually, it's not quite red, but it's very close to red, but it's just a smidge on the pink side. And on top of these other colors that I've put down, it takes on a little more of a pink hue, but it is technically what I would say a red. All right, so now let's start working on our border. So this, it's a light yellow. Just very, very softly placing this in here. Some of these even have kind of this really light edge on them, on the tops. And then our kind of this brighter green just along the edge here. Now, just softening all of these colors together. So it's not really like a hard line from the pink to the lighter color. It just kind of fades into it. And same thing, where that lighter color meets this bright green, it's more of a fading. So just think about keeping your touch really, really soft here. All right, so I'm gonna come back in some of this peach and just create some, just some bolder marks in here on a few of these pieces. Now, the ones in the back are more out of focus, so any kind of bold marks we do back there, we're gonna need to blend out or soften them. These ones in the front, I don't really want to soften. I want to leave them nice and bold. So I'm not going to touch those marks. I'm just going to soften these ones in the back. Now, same thing with this nice light yellow that I used just a second ago. I'm going to put these edges back in, and I'm going to leave them nice and strong. And then where I put them strongly in the back, I will blend them out. All right, I'm just going to use my little blender, and I'm just going to use this to just create an edge here. And I'm using it back here to soften the edge. Just creating that feeling that it's getting a little blurry as it's going back. So this little blender is the best way, in my opinion, to create kind of like depth of field, like how things get blurrier as they go back further. This blender is so good at doing that. All right, now let's turn our attention to our the peel or the rind. And just like I did with the orange and the pink. Now I'm coming in with a little bit of a cooler, lighter shade of green on top of this dark green I put in. And we will play with this green until we get it right where we want it. And blending it into our dark green. Okay, this is getting really fun. So I have a very, very dark violet, almost black, but it's violet. I'm going to use that to create my shadowy or my darker areas on the bottoms of these rinds, where they're going down and touching onto the plate. There's not any light hitting them down there. I'm going to use just a little bit of a brighter green on these areas where the light is hitting. Not really blending now, just softly kind of touching those areas and softening the transition between them. And the fun thing about pastel, if you go too far, if you make a mistake, it's so easy to fix. Just bring your color back in. As long as you've got enough layers, you can go over top of your mistake. All right, so my plate. So this is the rim of this plate, and it goes behind our little guy there. So I'm not really doing the plate just yet. I'm just putting it in so I have the proper perspective on what I'm doing here. All right, so I'm switching to, or at, bringing in a dark, warm green. Just add a little, you know how watermelons kind of, I know they're not necessarily like striped, but they have markings on them. So just wanting to just bring a little bit of that kind of variegation feeling into these. Bringing more of this dark violet in just at the bottom. I'm putting in some of those bold marks again. And even a few bold marks with my chartreuse here. It looks like, I feel like I'm missing part of my watermelon slice right here. I'm just gonna bring and then work to blend it with what I had down there. So like I said, even if you mess up, pastels are very forgiving. And I don't try and hide when I make mistakes, even as an instructor, because I am absolutely not perfect. And I don't want you to feel like you have to be perfect to be successful with your pastel work, because you 100% do not. Yeah, dirty finger. Just wipe off your fingers. All right, I'm getting my blurred back pieces here again. Okay, so I'm going to use that same violet for my seeds. I know they're black, but this violet is plenty dark. So our seeds are also going to help these feel more dimensional. Our seeds in the back are very, very blurred, very soft. And of course we have our lighter bit on top of these guys. So I'm just gonna bring, this is just a bit more yellow than the than this lighter color that I was using earlier, just on a few of these pieces in the front. This to really help create this feeling of depth, even a little bit more on these front ones. I'm just trying to put a few little spots on them where there might be some light hitting. All right, so our plate is white, but we are not going to use white to draw it or to color it in. I'm using a very pale pink right now for the rim. And then a very, very pale blue for the body of it. And the eye is going to think these colors are white, but the pink is going to look brighter because it's warmer. And the pale blue is going to look cooler. Or I don't mean cooler, I mean it's going to look a little darker, like it's maybe in shadow a little more, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to go to just a slightly more neutral blue, still very, very light, to create even more this feeling that this plate is rounded and that there's some shadows going on here. And then even inside now, go the same kind of neutrally gray, neutral gray blue. And now, whoops, now getting to purple. So just dabbing this very, very lightly on the bottom here, just to help create that feeling of roundness. Getting some of it in here. And I'm going to use this very, it's almost like a Payne's gray inside here to really give us those shadows. And then also just along the bottom edge. Now, the funny thing about whites, or, using these blues and, this bright pink for the rim, is that your eye is going to see all these as white. And if we were to put this into like a graphic design program and take little, the eyedropper tool and say, what colors are these? The graphic design program is totally going to be able to see that these are not white, but it's not that hard to trick your eye into seeing things as white, especially shades of blue. So when you are creating and you need something that's white, don't reach for your white pastels. They look dull, usually, against your other colors. You really create the feeling of white and this feeling of brightness through the use of complements and different tints and tones. It's not about using white. Now that I have all this in, I'm blending it out, and then we'll come back in and put our sharp details in. So this is how I tend to work, is I put in kind of my bottom layers, get them where I want them in terms of the, the location and the feel of my colors, and then I will come back in after I blur them out and put in my details. And sharpen up my edges. All right, so now back to my very pale pink. Making sure where I'm putting my strong marks is where I want them. Just clean up the bottom edge of this little slice. right, now let's just clean up our background. I'm going to use my blending tool a lot here because I'm working really close to these edges. So even though the background is a mix of blues, I don't know exactly which blues I used right next to these edges. So I'm pulling them further out into the background just to help them feel like they've always been that color. All right, now let's work on our table. So same idea here, just going along the edge with one of the colors that I used, just pulling it down. Alright, so now I'm just putting some details into my table. I'm getting this feeling of some of this wood grain. Now, of course, we're going to have, the table's going to be darker underneath the bowl. So I'm just starting to create a little bit of that feeling with this green. All right, so right along the very base of our bowl, we're gonna have a shadow where it's touching the table. And then we're gonna have a little bit shadow closer in. There's not as much light getting underneath there. So I just used that same dark purple that I had used on the rinds. Back to my blending tool just for down here. And then we got to add some wood grain. And I'm just using kind of a mixture of browns, very neutral greens and blues here. And then I'm just gonna soften them. And be really, Wally! No, Wally! Be really cognizant of following this same direction as I'm blending these. Just really blurring out that line where the table ends. All right, I'm just gonna put a few little finishing marks in here. I like to step back and just really look at my painting from a distance and see, you know, what might be missing, how I can make it a little stronger. So my background is a little too smooth for me. So I'm just gonna come in, just add just some texture back in there. These are all the same pastels I used earlier, just using them to create a little bit more life and texture. So definitely don't be afraid of revisiting your background or any other parts of your painting. think I like it. So I'm gonna put my initials on it. I always forget to find a pastel with a corner. Alrighty, so there you go. We painted this whole thing on a piece of sandpaper. The whole pack of sandpaper, I think it was 10 sheets, was like $8. So much, much cheaper than regular pastel paper. Works pretty much the same. As you can see, you can get really good results on it. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. Is it something that you're gonna add to your studio? So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.